Welcome to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. I'm Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. At Finstrat, we provide CFO-led accounting, finance, and reporting services to assist clients monetize their business. Stick around to the end of the podcast and I'll share how you can be our next guest. Now on to the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Innovators and Investors Podcast. I'm your host, Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. Super excited because today we have with us Gaurav Bhattacharya, founder and CEO of Jeeva.ai. Gaurav, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, Kristian, thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
Excited to have you. So let's start. Jeeva.ai, what challenges and problems is it solving in the marketplace?
So Kristian, the reason we started this company or this product was that we believe that a lot of the deep human connection work AI will never be able to do, or that's our conviction that it's going to be very hard. So like us connecting right now, we were just talking right before the podcast started, you were talking about the LA connection you have. We don't think AI would ever be able to do this, but manual, repetitive, labor-intensive tasks, we believe AI can do it better, faster, cheaper than humans can. And I think that's what we're very focused on, is like taking the laborious, repetitive tasks out of the workforce. And so we're built on top of these AI models like ChatGPT and others. But the whole premise for us is we're trying to create these digital AI workers that you can hire at a very cheap cost, give them a task, and eventually they'll be able to do end-to-end work. And we're starting with sales reps. So we believe that a lot of the sales tasks are very repetitive, like demand generation, lead generation. So even finding good data about enrichment of data about your target market, all of this we're trying to automate with Jeeva.ai. That's the premise of the company.
And is it fair to say this is synonymous with the term AI agent?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we actually, another quick fun story is I'm a software developer. There was a open source project before even like Salesforce is doing agents. Now everyone's doing agents. But even before, when ChatGPT was released, there was a project called AutoGPT, which basically was a GitHub repository. A couple of developers got together, then almost 400 developers contributed to it. But the goal was like, can you create AI to chain tasks, do a lot of workflows together? So take one ChatGPT prompt, keep prompting it until it gets to the right solution, give it access to tools. That was the whole concept of agents. That's when it started. I was actually one of the first programmers to code a lot of it. And once we saw that there's potential, we decided to create this into a whole new project and build a company around it. That's the origin of this company.
It makes perfect business sense. In fact, totally serendipitous. Over the weekend, I read someone made a comment to the extent of, if a task is boring and monotonous, don't you think that we should automate it?
Yep.
And it's such a simple statement because every single person in probably any organization, whether they're entry level all the way up to the C-suite, probably has elements of their day-to-day where they should be evaluating and asking the question and saying, hey, can I be more efficient here? And it sounds like you guys have answered that question. It's a big resounding yes. And would love to hear a little bit about what your experience is in the market. And maybe unpack a little bit why start with sales and marketing.
Yeah, so sales and marketing is very interesting for us because just a quick story of us. We were talking about pivots right before this. So we pivoted. We were selling a very different product and we had built it for many years. But for us, that product was analyzing a lot of customer data. So we were heavy, like we always had a very small sales team and we had a very big customer service team because we had to take customers' data, clean them, analyze them, do all of that stuff. So we were almost going out of business and we started using AutoGPT to start doing sales internally. So we were like, hey, we can't afford a SDR, BDR team. We can't afford an agency. We have almost no money to do Google ads or Facebook ads. How about we just use AI to get us a bunch of leads so that the founders can close them? That was the goal for the product. We built it internally. We called it R2D2, like Star Wars. And we ran it for a few months and we got tons of meetings. We had packed calendars always. And that's when we decided that, hey, there's an opportunity to pivot and build something in it. And that's just happened to be our first use case because we were doing it internally in our company. So sales and marketing became the first kind of use case. And one of the things when I first started my career, Kristian, I was an SDR. I had a side job. I was doing a lot of cold calling and I hated being a sales development rep. And that's one of the things I always felt is like people don't love being SDRs and people hate hiring SDRs because these are kids out of college. So we were like, hey, maybe there's a good opportunity to automate a role that is not super popular in the market. And we can build something from the ground up that could solve a lot of pain points for a lot of businesses. So that's how we landed to sales. We've actually been under a year of development. We started this product or actually selling this product only 6 months ago, but we're already at 3 million in annual recurring revenue, nine. So 0 to 3 million in almost 6 months. And we're trying to, yeah, we're trying to hit 12 or even 15 million next year. So I don't know, by the time podcast comes out, hopefully we're already past 5 million in ARR and growing very fast. So that's been like our story so far.
Brilliant. I'd love, so you mentioned that there was a pivot. Can you give us a sense of what the conversation was like internally? Because one of the things that we find talking to a lot of founders is that there's uncertainty associated with a pivot. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount riding on the fate of an organization. How'd the experience unfold?
Yeah, totally, Christian. I think it was very hard. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. And it's very hard for a couple of reasons because I'll maybe a funny example I would give people is let's say you're at an Italian restaurant, right? And you took all your friends to an Italian restaurant that is one of your favorite restaurants. You convince them that it's going to be one of the best experiences of their life and they need to spend $500 on a lunch with you each. And or now people are convinced they're like, this is going to be the best freaking lunch they've ever had. It's the best pastrami sandwich that they're going to eat with the best carbonara pasta or something. And all of a sudden now you're like, okay, the reservation's booked. And you have to now convince these folks that are already spending $500 with you, for example. These could be your investors or your friends and your coworkers. But now you have to go and chase another restaurant. And there is no other restaurant yet. So you don't know what restaurant might be there, but you're still convincing them that, hey, instead of $500, now you have to pay $500 more to me, but the next place is going to be amazing. By the way, as a founder, I personally don't know where the next place is where you got to eat. So if you think about it, that's how a pivot is because you're trying to convince a group of folks that you've sold a vision to that are now bought into this vision. They're like, this is going to be the next big thing. We're very excited to work here every single day. We have a vision, we have a mission, we know what we're going to build, and we have very strongly held beliefs now as a company. And all of a sudden, we're like, hey, it's actually not working. And either do the two options you have is try something else or go and shut down the business. But the second thing is also very uncertain. You actually don't know whether even that's going to work or not, or what that thing even is. It's like very loosely defined. So it's very hard to now go back to your workers, to your founders and your employees, and even to your investors and say, I actually now that I was super convinced on this vision, but it's not working, and here's why. And here's the second thing that we want to try. And here's a very candid feedback on where we think it can work and where it would fail. And now it's your decision to either come on board again, ride this journey with us again, or maybe to part ways with us if it's not working for you. So that's very hard to do. And you want the best people to stay, obviously, right? So you have to convince them somehow without lying, without being facetious about the next big thing, right? And that's basically it. You're trying to mine for oil or for gold without actually knowing whether gold exists anymore, right? That's what it is. And it's a very hard journey overall.
Yeah, and that's a powerful analogy. My sense is that it's probably, for all founders, it's a combination of both qualitative, there's a story that's informed by the power of leadership, but then quantitative. So getting from 0 to 3 million ARR that quick, I tip my hat. That's fantastic, really exciting. And so maybe then if you could, so you make the pivot, what metrics or data points were you looking for feedback to validate that you made the right decision in the first couple of months of pivoting?
Yeah, it was all about paying customers for us, Christian, because we had a very short timeline. Actually, we were running out of money even. So at one point, we only had about 2 to 3 weeks of runway left. So I think it was very easy for us that, hey, we were basically like, hey, do we make it? Do we just basically, can we get to cash flow break even? Can we actually get paying customers for this? Would people want to try and want to pay for this as soon as possible? So that was our clear metric of proof points. And I think that was the right decision because in the early days of our first product, we were very focused on usage metrics and product market fit, which means that people would be very excited to use it. It will solve like a big pain point. But a quick realization, especially for B2B startups, is that unless someone's paying for it, they're not, really getting value. People stop paying for things that they're not getting value for. I think it's as simple as that. And so we were very excited to land on our first few paying customers, and then it just went up from there. So I think that was very quick validation that, hey, this thing is real. People have legitimate pain points. We can labor replacement could be a big opportunity for small businesses, especially. There was also a statistic which said that AI is going to create almost 100 million small businesses over the next decade or so, which got us very excited because we felt that a lot of small businesses do not have capacity to go and hire 10 more salespeople like maybe Disney would or Tesla would. So is there an opportunity to serve this market for small and medium sized enterprises where they don't have to hire as many people, but they can still double or triple growth, which was very exciting for us. And when we spoke about that message, almost every single person we were talking to resonated with that message and they believed in the vision. And they were like, hey, if this product even barely works, I'll be very happy to pay for it. And when we were able to prove that out in the first couple of weeks, then we got our first few paying customers and it just went up from there.
That's fantastic. So again, congratulations. That's a fantastic turn of events. And so now you're faced with this growth. How do you think about financing it? Has it been completely bootstrapped organic, or have you raised any outside finance?
Yeah, we actually were able to raise a small amount of money in the middle. We got super lucky. Jack Altman, who's Sam Altman's brother, Jack Altman was the CEO of Lattice, and they have a new fund called Alt Capital. And I don't know how we got connected to him, but we were only at a maybe like 250,000 or $300,000 of ARR within the first few weeks, and we did a demo for him. He loved it, so he gave us some capital. Then Mark Benioff from Salesforce joined him because they were friends. Yeah, so we got funded a little bit pretty quickly and not a lot of money, but we got some capital from them. And then some of our older investors pre-pivot wanted to come back in. So we were able to raise some money there. But moving forward, the next big milestone for us would be like technically like a Series B round. That's what we want to go for. So we're actually going to keep growing, maybe hit 10 million in annual revenue. That's one of our benchmarks, and then probably go out to fundraise again. But also, we don't want to rely on it. What would be awesome is we're as close to cash flow break even as possible, and we're even trying to get annual deals and customers that are paying us up front, which makes us feel very happy. And so we're very focused on cash and cash coming in every single week so that we can almost like control our own destiny. But obviously, if we want to grow fast and we want to do it, we'd probably go for a financing, which is always fun and not what founders want to do because it can be a lot of like time and time. We would rather have our eye on the ball and just keep executing, but would love to lift our heads probably mid next year and see if we can get it round done.
Fantastic. Having served as a fractional CFO myself, I know a big conversation that takes place at the C-suite is allocation of budget between product development and sales and marketing. Depending on one's philosophy, there's an opinion of, hey, let's invest in features and functions because we believe that's how we're going to attract business. And then on the other hand, no, let's continue to, invest in getting the word out because that's how we want to make sure people find us. Would love to hear your perspective of how you think about allocating capital to the two buckets.
It's very hard, Kristian. And I would say, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a product-led founder, but I would say that what is a business? Business is a group of people that come together to build a product or a service. And if the product and the service is not good enough or is not amazing, then nothing else matters. So it doesn't have to be a product-based company, but if you think about anything else, even the service that you guys are providing or the service that other, let's say, financial advisors provide, or let's say insurance providers provide, or it could be anything, even legal services, they have to be the best no matter what it is. So your product has to be really good, I feel, in the market to be very effective in kind of this day and age and economy. Having said that, I feel the second most important thing is always like growing. Like either you're talking to customers to sell them or you're growing, which is like either you're keeping customers and you're growing your current customers. These are the number two most important things for any company. And what ends up happening is, Kristian, I think as companies are really small and they're kept lean, they're very focused on those two things, right? Because you're as founders and as early employees, all you're doing is you're coding or building product or you're building your service and you're talking to customers. You're either trying to sell them or you're trying to talk to customers that already exist and trying to keep them and keep them happy. But then I think what happens is as companies start growing and they become very distracted. And then there's other things that come up that are not as important. And a lot of times, like even like team is very important, right? So building the number three would be hiring. I would say that anything beyond that is just a waste of time and opportunity. I honestly feel that as a company, we spend a lot of time arguing about smaller things that are not as relevant, as important to the bottom line. And as bigger companies, as companies get bigger, there's more and more things like that. Like I remember like in my last company, we had reached about 100 and some people. So it's still not a massive company, but I remember we had this argument with two executives and they were fighting about one wanted to make Friday work from home Fridays because that was like a big trending topic at that time. And the other person wanted to do a half day Friday, which means that instead of you having work from home, you work for half day in the office and then half day you can take off. And literally they had fight for months and one person even wanted to leave. And I was like, what the F is going on here? If you think about it, then none of that matters, right? That's not why companies become the next Nvidia or the next, Salesforce is because you had work, but people are very passionate about these things. So I think that's one of my biggest jobs is always trying to get people focused. Didn't answer your question directly though, Kristian. For us particularly, I would say we're very focused on dividing 50-50. So we are making a lot of investments in sales and marketing. We're underinvested completely on sales and marketing. So far, we've had zero ad dollars. We've not done any marketing. It's been very like word of mouth growth for us, but we want to change that. A lot of our budgets, let's say for this year, has been 90% product and engineering, 10% sales and marketing, but it's going to go more towards 50-50 moving into 2025.
No, it's really helpful feedback because my sense is that there are different opinions and time where the company is on its growth trajectory influences that decision. I also think it's leadership's philosophy on how you grow a business. And so it's just valuable getting your take. So with that, I think we can probably a great segue into culture. I recently read someone said something like nothing breeds culture like winning. I think that's is really true, but would love to hear how deliberate are you with building Jiva's culture, or is it really just, hey guys, here's the vision, let's execute?
No, it's very important, Christian. It's everything I believe. I truly believe in this statement. And I feel like a lot of companies that almost died and nothing was happening for them and they came back and became these massive successes. It's I think all the founders attributed towards a small team of highly motivated, like very good culture that was able to rally and turn it around. I was even reading this book, High Output Management by Andy Grove, where he talked about turning Intel and doing a massive pivot with Intel and walking away from businesses. Jensen Huang talks about the fact that the company did a massive pivot as a public company. They decided to move away from gaming and completely reinvent themselves in AI and stop doing some of the like some of the commodity businesses they got out of it. And it was very hard. And I do feel culture is very important. We believe in 3 or 4 core values that we're very focused on. One of the things that we believe on is a company is moving fast, and we are very focused on speed. And speed could also mean that the quality is not always great because you're moving fast, you're iterating faster, right? So you don't have time to do thoughtful things. But we're very fast about making decisions and being decisive. We're very fast about executing, and that's a core value for us. The other thing we always focus on is ambition. We want to build a massive company. We're not happy with having a small outcome. Let's say if Salesforce comes in and buys us at $100 million, a lot of people would make a lot of money, but maybe we wouldn't be the happiest. We would love the opportunity to build the next Salesforce instead. So that's something that we truly believe in, and we hire people that have huge ambitions, that want to build something really big and want to be involved from the ground up. I think that's very important for us. Growth is very important for us. We look for growth mindset. That's one core value or cultural value we look for is people don't have to have the right aptitude to join us, but they need the right attitude and they need like a learning mindset, right? They're coming in very humble, saying that it's okay, we don't know this, we're learning every single day. And that those 3 things are very important for us. There's obviously other smaller other things, but those kind of make up a lot of our cultural values. So if you talk to anyone in the company, they would have a lot of ownership and founder mindset, even though they may have never started a company before. And those are the kind of folks we look for in this company.
It leads me, you made it really easy leading me to my next question. Have you always felt this way? Or did something happen prior to Jiva where you said, no, I've seen the opposite, or no, this is so intuitive, it has to be this way?
Totally, Christian. Yeah, yeah. So I remember one time, this is my third startup now, but in my first startup, I was very focused on hiring for experience because I was very young and I always felt that I lacked the experience needed. So I always looked for relevant experience. And when we were interviewing, we would never interview for culture. We would always interview for skill. Are you a good salesperson? Are you a good engineer? Have you done this before? Have you like what skill sets do you bring here? And one day I woke up and I was like, man, I literally hate 90% of the people I work with. Like I detest them. And it's horrible because I hired them and they probably hate me too. Like they're probably like, oh, this kid doesn't know anything what he's doing. And that was very hard for me. And I had this opportunity where we had a lot of politics that we had created because a lot of we hired a lot of people with a lot of egos and big egos. And and rightfully so, they were the most skilled people we hired for. And then one day we just woke up and we were like, and me and my founder were talking and we were like, when we start our next company, we would never make this mistake again. We would always look for attitude over skill. And because a lot of skills can be taught and learned, but attitude is very hard to teach. Elon Musk has this quote where he says, you almost need a brain transplant for people to change their minds and opinions, and their attitude is very hard to change. So you just look for it from the beginning, and it's very easy to spot in interviews. You can ask a few questions that kind of shows their mindset, skill set, or mindset over skill set, and that's what we do. So it was a very hard decision, but those were like very early learnings. I don't know, what have you seen, Kristian? What makes the best worker, co-worker, employee for you?
Yeah, I would tell you in the simplest terms, the way I like to describe it is, do they drink the Kool-Aid?
Yeah.
Meaning, do they share my vision for the future of the company? And like I tell my daughters, watch what the boys do, not what they say. My experience has been is talk is cheap. What I really care is about whether or not you get done what you say you're going to get done when you say you're going to do it. And that's my yardstick. Like you, if someone has a poor attitude, it's not a fit because I think culture is deliberate. People do want to win, but people also want to work with people they like. And with that, and then now you have me really thinking is, so one of the things you mentioned was moving quick. All right.
Yeah.
But there's this old mantra that's been around for a while, hire slow, fire fast. I'm curious, do you hire fast, fire fast?
Oh, yeah, it's so hard to do. So I would say I'm guilty of hiring fast as well. I really try to slow it down.
You're guilty, but I like it. It's
Yeah,
good.
totally. I mean, I would say like a lot of people, like a lot of times we made a bad hire and we are letting them go quickly. I feel fire fast is like a no-brainer. Like I feel so another funny anecdote I have is so we used to have these founder sessions by one of my VCs, and it was amazing. It was like when I was early in my career, they had these fireside chats with entrepreneurs, and we had, for example, everyone from like the founder of a company called Ramp, which you may have heard of, the Ramp and Drive. They've grown a lot, from Notion to like some of the best companies, Figma. These are like multi-billion-dollar companies. We had the Canva CEO talk to us. One question we would always ask is, what is the biggest regret you've had? What is the worst thing that what could if you could go back early in your career, do one thing differently, what would you do? 90% of them, no matter what they said, they also mentioned that I wish we had let people go early. That's one thing that they still had regrets on. Like even the Airbnb CEO, Brian Chesky, talks about he wish he would be better at firing people fast and letting them go early for so many reasons, right? I think that's just so important. And we're always like, we love people. We want to give them a second chance or a third chance. We always feel like as founders, we're always like, we are not good managers. I'm sure you've heard this from your founders. They're always like self-deprecating. They're always like, yeah, but it's because I don't know how to manage great people. I have great people, but I just don't know how to manage them. But great people are self-managing mostly, right? They don't need good managers. They're just going to be amazing no matter what. So firing fast just makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I'm not great at it, but I think I've become very maniacally focused and almost like mercenary when it comes to it now because I've learned so much through my mistakes. In terms of hiring slow, I feel we hire fast. I don't know if that's the best thing or not, but I'm actually a believer of taking bet on people early. And if it's a competitive market always, if you can get them early instead of taking a lot of time and slowing down the decision, then sometimes it's a decision between them joining you versus joining someone else. So I don't know if it's the best thing, but we move fast on people. Like sometimes we just make them an offer. I would talk to someone for 15 minutes and I know whether I want to with them or not. And that's it. I don't waste their time. I'm like, hey, here's what we can do. Here's an offer. You'll see an offer next day. If it's great, then would love to work with you. If not, just let us know. So we make it super easy for them.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably devote an entire podcast to hiring, but
Oh,
I would generally support and I frankly applaud the approach. It's funny, one of the things that I've adopted during my hiring is I'm one, by the time someone reaches me, we've had other managers conduct initial interviews. And so I'm more focused on attitude than I am skill if by the time they get to me. And I'm pretty direct and I'm almost, I do more of the talking during the interviews. I'm like, hey, here are our expectations around, as you point out, attitude, work product, long-term vision. And then I explicitly ask, are you okay with all of these things? Because, hey, if we find out after the fact that you're not, we're going to part ways. That said, I guess one of the things I would also just call out in defense in some founders who may hold on to employees longer than they should. I feel like there are times when you simply need Marines on the beach because you're experiencing such significant growth that if you were to turn over staff, perhaps as quick as you should, that your clients could, and their implementations can have a negative impact. I think, long way of saying, I agree with your approach. I think it's wise, though I can also appreciate sometimes why you might hold on to someone a bit longer than you prefer.
I think the hardest ones, Christian, and I'm sure you can empathize with this, is there's like A players and A plus players where they're like, oh, they're amazing, right? And that's one. There's C players or C plus players, which you're like, oh, they're horrible, for example, right? Or they're like not doing a good job. Everyone agrees with it. There might be good people, but they might not be, or they might be like, or they may be culturally really bad, for the company. They might be like very arrogant. Those
That's
are,
right.
I think the B ones or the B plus ones are really hard because just with some more coaching, they could do better, right? Or they're like, they're not growing, they won't be able to do all these five things you want them to do, but they're doing one or two things decent enough. And if you lose them, then you lose those one or two things from happening. Could be like maybe this one customer manager is on 10 customers already. They may not be able to handle more, or they're not doing great onboardings, but now they're affiliated with these 10 accounts and they're going on customer calls. And if I lose them, then I need to find backups. Those are the hard ones, I feel. And I think those are really hard to decide on, and at least for me personally.
100% agreed. And there's the old refrain, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Gaurav, this has been an awesome podcast. A lot of great insights in here. I know our audience is going to appreciate. Before we wrap up, last question. What advice would you give to the founders who are listening to this conversation?
That's so awesome, Christian. I was just talking to one of my nephews, and he's 9 years old now. His name is Eli, and I was hanging out with him yesterday and my brother, and he asked me this question because he has a school project. He has to meet 25 people and ask for advice that they would give their younger selves or to the next generation. So now I've had 24 hours to think about this, and I gave a really bad answer to him, but I've been thinking about this nonstop. I think one thing I would say is take more risks. I feel it's okay to take more risks, no matter what the path is. There's a podcast by Sam Altman which says that every time he has to make a decision between an easier path and a risky path, he always chooses the riskier path because he said that the rewards are always better. And a lot of people over index risk versus reward, or the loss of risk. Basically, if you make a wrong, riskier bet and you lose something, usually it's not that bad. So people are always hesitant to make risks. They always take fewer risks than what they would if they had like the risk appetite was longer. I think as founders, I think it's always good to be a little bit more risky than like risk averse. It could be making that difficult hire that you're thinking about, making a difficult fire that you're thinking about. Could be like talking to that one VC if you're not interested in, or if you're thinking about that's a risky path. Fundraising is risky always, right? Things like that. Letting go of a difficult customer could be risky. So there's so many scenarios, but I think more risks you can take, the better. And I feel I wish I'd done that early in my career. And I have to remind myself always to take more risks. That's one thing that I would tell other founders to do as well.
Well, I think that's absolutely brilliant advice. I'm gonna butcher it, but I recently read Mark Andreessen said something to the effect of you'd be surprised how the universe unfolds in your favor when you go for it. Gaurav, awesome podcast. Thank you. If there's anyone who's listening to this who's interested in becoming a member of the Jeeva.ai team or an investor who would like to learn more about the company, how can they get a hold of you?
Or yeah, I'm very simple. It's G is my email, G@Jeeva.ai. I'm also on LinkedIn, but my name is long, Gaurav Bhattacharya. If they can search for it from the probably podcast cliff notes, then either LinkedIn, email works just as well. I'm very responsive.
Fantastic. Gaurav Bhattacharya, founder and CEO of Jeeva.ai. Gaurav, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Christian. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Likewise, our pleasure. Take care. Kristian Marquez here. Thank you so much for listening to the Innovators and Investors Podcast.
If you're a successful founder or an investor who would like to be on the podcast, please visit podcast.finstratmgmt.com/podcast-guest. If you've got something out of this interview, please share this episode on social media. If you know someone that would be a great guest, please tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Innovators and Investors. I'd love to see your posts and suggestions. We're regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you catch each new episode, please subscribe to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. And your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and it means a lot to me and my team. Would you like to know more? Go to our website, finstratmgmt.com, or follow us on LinkedIn or on X. Our handle is @finstratmgmt. This is Kristian Marquez. Thank you for listening. Until next time.